Well, I feel like I wore the perfect shirt for today's video. It says it's all fun and games till somebody loses a wiener, and there's a bunch of guys around a campfire, and you can see one of them doesn't have their hot dogs anymore. And that describes this situation because, well, if you are a consumer shopping for a vehicle, well, you're the guy that no longer has the hot dog on the stick. But before we get into this video, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And then if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Let's get into it. So I was actually going to make a video about the luxury car market today because the luxury car market is going through a bit of a boom. But then I saw this article from Cox Automotive and I completely shifted gears because they have an article talking about new car inventory. They revised all of their numbers because they have more data from January, and it's pretty crazy. So new car inventory as of the end of January of 2023 was around 1.7 million cars, which represents a 57-day supply. And the average listing price of a brand new car in January, or at the end of January, was almost $48,000. Just to put this number into perspective, December of 2022 had a day supply number of 59. So our day supply just decreased by 2, which means that there are less cars available compared to how many cars are selling on the market. And this is despite the fact that January saw a much higher rate of cars in the market compared to January of 2022, over 60% more cars available. And so what this shows is from January of 2022 to January of 2023, there were substantially more cars available, but from December to January, there were less new cars available. So this shows that in the long run, things are getting better, but in the short term, it looks like things are getting worse. And that kind of reflects the used car data that we saw from January, where used car prices, stopped going down and they kind of ticked up a little bit. And that makes sense. If there are fewer new cars available, then the used cars are going to command price premiums again. But something to note is whether you look at the December data or the January data, you need to know that that amount of cars and that day's supply is nowhere near what we saw prior to the pandemic. In January of 2019, there were over 3.6 million new cars for sale, which represented a 95-day supply. Now, Cox Automotive states that a 60-day supply is more of a normal market. So January of 2022 is definitely heavy with cars, which was obviously better for consumers. We need to talk about today's sponsor, Morgan & Morgan. Now, nobody wants to get into a car accident, an accident at their workplace, or, slip and fall in front of a business, but sometimes it just happens to be a part of life. And I can speak about this from a place of personal experience because when I was 17 years old, I got in a really bad car accident where my car got totaled out. And because I didn't know anything about insurance companies or getting help by a law firm, I basically got completely screwed in the situation where I got no money for my totaled car and I was left without a vehicle. And this is where Morgan & Morgan can help out. They are America's largest injury law firm with over 100 offices, over 800 lawyers, and over 4,000 case staff that are all ready to help you out. Now, I know at this point you might be thinking, Ben, that sounds really expensive, but here is the deal. All of the court hearings, the research, the negotiation, and more are free unless you win. And so if you're involved in some sort of personal accident, whether it be a slip and fall accident, an accident at your workplace, or maybe a car accident similar to what I was involved in, then you might want to get help from Morgan & Morgan. And don't feel bad that you're going down the route of suing. I know a lot of people might feel guilty about this, but what you have to understand is you're not suing the person or the business. You're suing their insurance company that has billions upon billions of dollars. And so it's more about making sure that you get the compensation that you deserve. So again, if you're injured in an accident, then you can check out Morgan & Morgan at www.forthepeople.com/Ben Hardy, or you can give them a call at pound 529, which is pound law. I think that's so cool that they got that number reserved. But again, www.forthepeople.com/Ben Hardy. The next part of this data set is in regards to asking prices. So in January of 2023, asking prices for brand new cars averaged just over $47,700, whereas in December it was $47,500 and some change. So this means that cars got more expensive in January compared to what they were at in December of 2022, which makes sense, right? There's always more incentives in December, and we still see, year over year price increases of over 6%, which is pretty crazy. But the other part of it is actual transaction price, because obviously asking price is different than transaction price. Average transaction price in January of 2023 was over $49,000, which was actually down from what it was in December. In December, it was closer to $50,000. And so although asking prices increased, actual transaction prices slightly decreased. But the most fascinating thing in this data set is luxury car sales. And this is why I originally was going to do a video talking about what's happening in the luxury car market. They were up by 20% in January of 2023. Now, if we dive back into the days supply part of things and split it up between luxury and non-luxury, it's actually pretty interesting. With non-luxury, there's over 1.4 million vehicles for sale, or was in January, which was a 58-day supply. Now, compare that to December, which had a 57-day supply and over 1.5 million vehicles. So December had more vehicles available than January, but obviously there were more sales that happened in December, so that's why there's a smaller day supply. Now, if we look at luxury cars, 260,000 units, and this represents a 53-day supply, whereas in December it was 270,000 units and a 61-day supply. So again, this shows the huge jump in luxury sales because there's lower availability with luxury cars. Now, when it comes to specific brands, there's actually a little chart here, and it kind of like raises all the way up. At the top of the chart, which is what you probably don't want to be at, is the manufacturers that have the most days supply. And this is what I see in real time when I go film cars. Jeep, Buick, Volvo, Chrysler, Dodge, Jaguar, Ram, Infiniti, Lincoln, they all have pretty large day supplies. Jeep is actually the highest, and geez, they're well over 100 days in terms of their day supply. So if you're looking for a deal, Jeep is going to be the route to go. And then on the opposite end of the chart is Toyota, Kia, Honda, Lexus, Land Rover, which makes sense. I mean, Toyota, for example, is under 30 days with their supply. Where's Subaru? Oh, Subaru's jumped up quite a bit. Subaru has over 40-day supply. Subaru went from being the most constrained manufacturer to now they're starting to build up inventory. That might be an interesting, thing to go over. Now, if you're wondering in terms of the national average with day supply, it's just over, again, 50 units. And so, it's going to vary manufacturer to manufacturer in terms of, what's available and what's not available. And so I guess, based on the chart, if you're looking for a deal, Jeep, Buick, Volvo, there's probably be some deals there. Whereas Toyota, for example, they're probably not going to be budging on price because they don't have to. The next part of the data set that's very important with this day supply topic is going to be the different price categories. So cars that are under $20,000 have no supply whatsoever. 31-day supply there, about 3,000 units available. And this is what I've been talking about, is super affordable cars are really hard to get. $20,000 to $30,000, 42-day supply. So again, that is under the national average. $30,000 to $40,000, that is 48-day supply, so still under the national average. The price range that gets up to the national average is $40,000 to $50,000 at 55-day supply, and then $50,000 to $80,000 had the most supply, over 70-day supply. And so this is exactly what I've been talking about in these videos. Once you go above that $40,000 price range, the buyers just disappear. And that's where a lot of the deals are happening because dealerships just cannot sell cars in those categories. And so what this report also states is that high performance cars are still selling really well, but and also compact cars as well. Full-size SUVs are also selling well, but larger expensive cars, those aren't really selling all that well. And I mean, that makes sense. Those cars were not selling well before the pandemic. Think of your big flagship cars. So for example, Genesis doesn't have a lot of inventory, but you can find G90s pretty easily with Genesis. And then Mercedes with their S-Class, that's another one that it's a more expensive car, but you get the point. The big flagship cars, those aren't really selling as much. So let's talk about what this data actually means for the car market. So right now, new car inventory is, slightly constrained. Again, if you look over the long term, we have way more inventory today than what we had last year. So that is a good thing, but it's kind of flatlined at this point because inventory is actually like quote unquote increasing in terms of like in transit units. This is what I've been noticing with dealers, is they're getting a lot of cars, but they're also selling more new cars. And so it's like the increase in sales is kind of like offsetting the increase in cars coming in. And this is why we have an increase in the forecasted amount of new cars that are gonna be sold in 2023. The initial forecast was like 13 million, but now they're forecasting that the new car market's going to see something like close to 16 million new vehicles sold in 2023. And so the car market, again, is slowly shifting to a more quote unquote normalized market, where there is more inventory available on the ground, but that inventory is moving at a quicker pace, which ultimately, that's what dealers want to see, and that's also what customers want to see, because if there are more cars available, then that means customers can get a better deal on the car, and then if there are more cars available, then there are more cars for dealerships to sell, which is a better deal for dealerships, because then they can try to make profits on a volume basis rather than trying to swing for the moon on every single car deal. So in terms of what you should do if you're currently shopping for a car in this market, is to just be patient, like I've been saying over the course of these videos. And the reason I say be patient is that with the brands that are still constrained, dealers obviously have pricing power, and so they're not really going to be willing to negotiate. But even though this is like a small uptick in price with the average, asking price of cars, and a small downtick in terms of supply, I don't see this as long-term. I think that supply is going to continue to get better as this year progresses. And so the constrained brands, although they're constrained right now, they probably won't be constrained in the future, which means you'll have better negotiating power in the future. But the brands that already have a lot of supply understand that they are doing deals right now. Like Jeep, for example, they're selling stuff at under invoice right now. And so it's like, from a dealership discount perspective, it doesn't really get any better than that. Now, will the manufacturers release rebates in these cars? Potentially, but you don't know. So understand that when it comes to the dealership front, again, with these brands that are already constrained, they're already just giving away the cars. So, I'm not saying that, hey, just jump in and buy a car, but what I am saying is that the negotiability with those cars right now is very strong. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about this whole situation. I'll see you.